Hey fashion lovers, welcome back again to another amazing tutorial on Eleganza TV. So today I'm going to be taking you through the process on how I draft, cut and sew this trendy overbust corset. Now this tutorial is strictly for advanced fashion designers. You should be able to know how to pay attention to details and cut and sew with little or no supervision. So without further ado, let's get on to the tutorial. So I'll start by creating a starting line and then I'll be taking my other basic measurements. So for the front pattern, I will be taking my shoulder to nipple, shoulder to underbust, my half length, and then I'll go ahead to connect to form a straight line. So for my half length, I'll be coming down by 10 inches. Now why this is good is normally when I make my top length to be 22 inches and then I mark my round hip circumference there, it tends to look funny and not well snatched. So at that 10 inches point, I'll be taking quarter of my hip and then later on I can adjust my top length. So on the top line, I divided my shoulder into two equal halves and then I came down by 1.5 inch for my shoulder slant. Then for the neck, I made it 3 by 3, which is like a normal standard neckline. So I'll go ahead to connect my shoulder slant and then I'll come down by 8 inches for my arm side length. So I'll still go ahead to mark half of my shoulder length at the arm side and then I'll connect that to my shoulder line. So for that line, I'll divide what I have into two and then I will come in by half an inch from that point. Then on my arm side length, I went ahead to take quarter of my bust measurement. So those 3 points that you see, I'll be connecting them together to form my arm curve. So now I'll go ahead to label the line so you don't get confused on which line I'll be referring to. So I have my chest line, bust point line, underbust, and half length. So I'll go ahead to impute my waist measurement on my half length. So I divide my waist into four. So my actual waist is 32 inches, but I'll be removing 4 inches. So I'll be snatching the waist by 4 inches. So I'll divide what I have into four and then add 1.5 inch for my data allowance. Then on that hemline, I will take quarter of my hip measurement and then just mark a point there. So I'll go ahead to connect the points together. So like I said before, so my top length, I will be taking my top length from my half length. So you can go ahead to measure how long you want your top to be. So you can make it 22 inches, you can make it 23 inches. Because if you make it too long, it's going to give you discomfort when you're sitting down. So that's why most people complain that when they sit down with corset, it feels as if they can't breathe. So the next thing I want to do is divide my nipple to nipple measurements into two. So I mark that point from my bust point down to my top length. So I'll go ahead to connect that using my straight ruler. Then on the side part, I'll take my bust dart of 2 inches. Now this bust dart varies for different body sizes. So just go ahead to measure the difference between your front half length and your back half length. So after doing that, I'm meant to take my dart on that line on the bust point line, but I'm going to leave that for later on. So let's go ahead to draft out the back pattern. So for the back pattern, I went ahead to create my starting line and from that point, I'll be taking my measurement. So I did the same thing I did for the front, which is dividing my shoulder into two equal halves, taking 1.5 inch for my shoulder slant. Then for the neck, the only difference is just the depth of the neck. So I use 1.5 inch for the depth of the neck. So now for the measurement at the back, my half length is going to be 16 inches. Like I said, the difference between my front and my back half length is 2 inches. So if my front half length is 18, my back half length will be 16. Then from that half length of 16 inches, I went down by 10 inches, which is the top length line. I already told you the reason why I'll be using 10 inches for now. Then also for my arm side length is 8 inches, basically what I showed you at the front. So we go ahead to draft out the arm side curve. So for this back pattern, if you don't want your back pattern to have a dart, then you can just remove that 1.5 inch dart allowance and make it like a dartless corset. So Next thing I'll be doing is I'll be showing you how to make it that, of course. So like I said before, you'll be removing 4 inches from the back of your waistline. So then after doing that, I went ahead to take my nipple to nipple measurement into two, then just mark that. Then on that line, I'll be taking my dart measurement. The dart allowance is 1.5 inches. So I'll divide that into two, which is 0.75. And then from the chest line on the back, I came up by 1 inch. So I will just go ahead to connect that to meet together, forming a diagonal shape, which is my dart. Okay, so now that we've gotten our basic bodies for the front and the back, now I want to show you how to manipulate it to form your overbust corset. So from the beginning of this tutorial, I told you that my top length is going to be shorter than what you see right here, and I explained the reason for that. So for my half length, I'll be coming down by 6 inches, which is going to make my top length to be 24 inches. So 24 inches is not too much for me, but if you want to make yours 23, 22, depending on your body stature and your length, just go ahead to measure yourself. Or if you're making this for somebody, so just go ahead to measure whatever suits you. So I'm making use of 24 inches, and this 24 inches, when cutting on my fabric, I will not be adding sewing allowance to the bottom because 24 inches is long enough for me. So after getting my top length line, I just want to go ahead to label it so you can see. Now I'll be taking my dart measurements. So for my shoulder line, I will divide my shoulder into two, and then I will go ahead to connect that point to my bust point. So now I want to draft out the dart for the half length, which I've not done yet. But first of all, I want to make that corset line to be slanted. I don't want mine to be looking straight. So to do that, for my top length line, I will come in by 2.5 inches. So meaning if I open it together, it's going to be 5 inches. So I'll go ahead to connect that to my underbust. You can see the way I slanted it to my underbust. So I was supposed to clean up that initial straight line I drew. But at the time I was making this video, I did not have eraser with me. It was at night. So guys, I will just go ahead to use my marker to make it clearer. So please bear with me. So guys, just know that this slanted line is going to be the dart line. So my dart allowance is 1.5 inches. So I'll divide that into two, which is 0.75. So I'll mark 0.75 on both sides of the slanted line. Please don't be confused. Now I will go ahead to connect that to I'll first of all connect the 2 points to my underbust, or to my bust point rather, and then I'll connect the other side to the top length. So next, I want to go ahead to do the underbust tightening, because this corset is an overbust corset with underbust tightening. So to get your underbust tightening, you're going to measure your round underbust on your body. After getting your round underbust, you divide that into four. So what I have here is 7.75. So I will measure what I have remaining on the side. So I have about 1.5 inch remaining. So that is going to be my underbust tightening. So normally I can just divide that 1.5 inch into two and mark 0.5 inch on both sides. But since the that line is already slanted, you don't want your underbust to be too clustered, like to join together. So I'm just going to measure half inch on that center front from the starting dart line. You can see that I did not forget that I made a dart there, but this is just going to give my underbust extra tightening. So I measured half inch from that dart line at the center front, and then at the side part I measured 1 inch. So that is the 1.5 inch. So now after getting this, I will just go ahead to connect the dart line to my bust point using my curved driller, and then I will go ahead to connect the underbust to the initial dart on the half length. So one thing I want to explain, which is totally optional, when connecting my half length dart to my top length, I decided to take it down to the hemline, which is the hemline of 10 inches. Now the reason why I did that, I will be explaining later. So I just want to give it extra tightening on the top length. So guys, here was what I was explaining. I decided to extend the dart line to the hemline of 10 inches. Now this is because I want to give it extra snatching on that top length line. So now that we've done the underbust tightening, I want to go ahead to show you how to do the overbust tightening. So I first went ahead to slash open the shoulder line so as to close down the bust dart. So I first like to share my bust dart into two so as to be able to know where to fold. So this is how you close your bust dart. Well, like I said before, this tutorial is an advanced tutorial, so you should already know how to do this. So you can notice that after closing down the bust dart, the measurement at the side is now different. So just go ahead to blend it out. So I'll be explaining two techniques for you, so you can go ahead to choose whichever one is easier for you to do your overbust tightening. So I'll go ahead to measure what I have on that space at the shoulder line. I have 4 inches. So I'll divide that 4 inches into two, which gives me 2 inches. So on the side part of the shoulder line, I will mark 2 inches there. Then after getting that 2 inches, I'll go ahead to connect that to my bust point using my ruler. So after doing this, I've not gone ahead to measure how long I want my overbust to be. So for my bust point line, I will measure 4 inches upwards. So you can go ahead to measure whatever best suits you. You can make your overbust to be like 5 inches upwards, depending on how you want it. So this means that my overbust is starting from 6 inches. So now after getting your measurements, you just go ahead to connect the points together to form a straight line. So that line is going to be your overbust line. So I just want to go ahead to explain what I did before I closed down my bust dart. And then I went ahead to measure what I have on that space from the 2 points of the shoulder line. I have 4 inches. So I would divide that into two. So that 4 inches is not a standard. Yours might be lesser than that. So whatever you have, you divide it into two. And then you replace the dart, then connect it to your bust point. So what you have on that space on the overbust line, you replace it back again to the center front, and then you connect from that point to your bust point straight up to your shoulder line. So like I said, this is one technique on how to do your overbust corset. The second technique is basically your normal way of doing it, which is maybe 0.5 inch on both side or 1 inch on both side of the overbust line. But this one just helps you to know the right calculations on how to go about it. So I want to go ahead to draft out the neckline, the style neckline that I'll be using for this overbust. So first of all, I just went ahead to slash open the bust dart. Then to do that, I will be closing both darts on the shoulder together. I'll be closing it up to get my actual neckline curve. But before doing that, first of all, I want to show you how to replace the darts on the shoulder line. So that 2 inches dart, I'll be replacing it to the side part. So my 1.5 inch shoulder slant is still there. So I'll just go ahead to replace the 2 inches dart. And then for the arm curve, which is for the overbust side, I will go ahead to, you can replace 1 inch or 1.5 inch. So 1 inch is enough, or you can just replace 1.5 inch to be on the safer side. When sewing on your fabric, you can trim off any excess. So I'll go ahead to connect the points together to form my new arm curve. So now after doing that, I want to go ahead to draw the style line on the neck. So you close the both darts on the shoulder. So I want to measure the neckline I'll be making use of. So from my chest line, I went down by 1 inch. So guys, you don't have to follow exactly what I'm doing. Just measure yourself. If you're making it for somebody, measure how deep you want the neckline to be. At the end of the day, after sewing, my neckline was a little bit deep and was showing my cleavage. So it was what I wanted, was what I was going for. So if you don't want yours to be that open, you can just make use of the chest line or just measure whatever best suits you. So for the overbust line on my arm side, I came up by 1 inch to give me that sharpness on the side part. I went ahead to place my curved ruler to connect the curve together. So this is how it's going to look. So like I said before, just work with whatever best suits you. yours can go higher than mine or maybe lower depending on whatever you want. Then on my chest line, I came up by half an inch, and then I will just go ahead to connect to the overbust line. So why did I go up by half an inch? I decided to do that because I don't want the arm side to be too wide when I'm cutting it. Maybe later on after sewing it, I can trim off if it's too small. So that's the reason why. So now I'll just go ahead to tape down my bust dart, and then I will reconnect my overbust dart curve so you can see what I've done. Let me take you back to a time when love was as precious as. So I will not be adding sewing allowance yet. So when I'm cutting on my fabric, that's when I'll add sewing allowance to the side part. So moving over to my top length, the reason why I said I'm taking that dart on that top length line is because I want to extend the side part by 1 inch. So I came out by 1 inch. Then I'll go ahead to connect that 1 inch point to my half length using my curved ruler. Now this is not like a conical corset. If you're doing a conical corset, then you need to increase it. Maybe use 2 inches or 3 inches. So I just want to give it a little bit of style line. So I came up again by 1 inch from my top length. So I'll just connect that to my actual top length line to give it a bit of style. So I'll just go ahead to make all the lines visible so you can see them clearly. And then one thing I want to do is add a dart line to the side part of the overbust corset. I want to put a dart line there, which is totally optional. You can even cut and sew like this. Then when you're sewing your boning channel, then you can put a style line, but I just want to cut it down. So to do that, I didn't really use any measurement. I just went ahead to place my ruler slantly to just connect that to wherever it stops, maybe at the arm side anywhere. So after doing that, I just went ahead to take a little bit of that. I took about 0.25, just small that, which is totally optional. You can just rule a straight line and cut. So before I go ahead to cut, I need to first of all label the line. So I labeled the line center front, mid front, and side front. And I just went ahead to fix in all of my arrows. And you should know what the arrows mean already. If you've been watching any of our videos, our corset videos, then you should already know what the arrows stand for. Where if you search, you would find it. I know that times have changed, but I don't wanna play no games, baby. I'll treat you different, show you commitment. She might be my baby, let me love you crazy, let me hold you down like gravity to the ground. So for the back pattern, I came down by 6 inches from my half length, which is going to be my top length. This is the same thing I did for the front, and then I'll go ahead to label the lines. Then from the chest line, I came up by half an inch on my arm side, and then on the center front, I came down by 1 inch. So I'll go ahead to connect both points together to give it a bit of curve. So you can do your back styling to be anyhow you want it to be, but this is just how I want mine to be. So for my lacing bar, I came in by 1 inch, and then for the top length, I came in by 0.75. So I'll just connect that, and then at the side part, I came out by 1 inch again. Then I'll go ahead to connect that to my half length. So when you're drafting your pattern, every little detail matters. So just the same thing I'm doing for my front is the same thing I'm doing for my back, doing my style lines too for the back. So after doing that, I will go ahead to connect all the lines together to make it visible. So this is all you're going to do for the back pattern. It is very simple and easy. So guys, if you find this video helpful, please do well to hit the like button, drop a nice comment, and please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I won't let us fade away, even when we old and gray. Know that I'll be here to stay. Let's fall in love. So the fabric I'm using is a damask fabric. So I just go ahead to place all my patterns on it, and then I'll be cutting with half an inch on the side. Each of the panels I'll be cutting with half an inch, except for the bottom part. Like I said, I'll not be adding twin allowance to the bottom part. Then for the side part, I'll be adding 1 inch. So this is how I'll also go ahead and be cutting on my lining, and then I'll iron interfacing to the main fabric and also on the lining. So after cutting all of them, I just went ahead to notch the half length and the underbust line. And in the next video, I'll be explaining the reason why I'm doing that. So this is where we'll come to the end. I've said that many times. So guys, if you find this video helpful and you want to see more amazing content on this channel, please do well to subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to turn on your notification bell to be notified when a new video drops.